it's a bit of a way for God to test us and say, "Are you ready?" Like, not
Mm,
not test us to say, "I think I can get you to fail," but test you to see to He knows we're ready, but he wants us to know we're ready. And so he'll throw out these tests, whether it's not feeling up to a task or having some sort of a setback in life. And what I've noticed is when I have these setbacks in life, whether they're minor, like I don't feel like working out today, that's a minor thing, or something major and catastrophic, like going through a divorce. God just has the ability to use that for leverage for the next evolution of our lives if we decide to accept that. And a lot of guys don't, right? They just think, "Oh, this happened to me, poor me, woe is me. If it weren't for bad luck, I wouldn't have any luck at all."
yeah.
But then there's those select few guys who, in spite of all of the drama and the baggage and the bull crap they deal with, always seem to rise to the top. And the only difference is the story they create about it. That's it. It's just the story you made up about it. Whether it's good or bad, you made up a story. And if it's one that serves you, it'll serve you. And if it's one that's not, it won't.
Robin Hood and Little John are walking through the forest, laughing back and forth at what the other one has to say.
All right. Hey guys, welcome to the Rucklist podcast. We got Ryan Michler on today. Ryan was a guy I texted before we started the podcast, and I had said, "Hey, I wanted to use you as sort of a benchmark goal for us in the podcast, just to kind of give myself that little bit of a carrot that I hung out there, just to stick with it, because I know a lot of people fail and they don't stick with the podcast thing. This is hugely important to us, and it's a thing that me and Tyrel daydream about a lot, and we love to do. And so we'd asked you to be on podcast 25, and life being what it is, we're on which episode now?
33 possibly.
33.
34 maybe. Yeah.
Because
But
we
Good.
all live
It's good.
we all live real life, right? And just schedules and things, and but the timing's perfect. I always feel like, it's exactly how it's supposed to be. And so, Ryan, dude, I look up to you so much, and I just appreciate you being here. And thanks for joining us today, man.
I'm really grateful. I think the same way of you guys. And yeah, I've been doing this for a long time. Actually, next month will be 11 years. So
Awesome.
I've been doing this
Yeah.
for a long time, but I still love it. I still love these conversations. When I see people starting podcasts, I'm like, cool, let's get after it. You're
Yeah.
right. Unfortunately, most people don't make it. The statistic was episode 20, but it's probably far less than that. So the fact that you guys are
Yeah.
at 33 now
Yeah.
is just a testament to you guys putting in the work and being consistent. And that's all it takes. Just
Yeah.
being consistent, getting better, improving, finding ways to make little micro adjustments along the way and just consistently get better.
It was a lot more work than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
I really
Yeah.
thought we would just like throw some microphones up on a little camera and just have a couple conversations a week and it'd be easy, but it's energetically, it takes a lot of work. It really does. It's more than I thought it was going to, and I love it. I like it more than I thought I'd like it. And it's a lot more work than I thought it was going to be.
I
there's
mean,
a
isn't
there's
that's
consistency
like
with it.
anything, right? Whether it's like
Yeah.
strength training or hunting. People look at it on Instagram, they're like, "Oh, strength train, you just go work out every day and like you're strong?" Yeah, okay, sure. Or, "Oh, you just go out into the woods and like shoot something? That's easy." And nobody ever gives it the respect that it deserves. Anything in life.
Yeah. Unless you've done it, right? Unless you've done it and then you see it and you
Right.
go, God, that dude
That's hard.
he's put in the work, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and dude, it's not always easy. I had one of those days today. It's funny. I try and lift before the podcast just to kind of like get my head right. And dude, I had to drag my ass through the workout so hard. It was rough. I mean, I just sucked. It was like my body, it just didn't want to do anything today. It was a grind. Every rep, it was just like, it was weird. I don't know what it is, but my body's just like, I want to quit. I want to quit. I want to quit.
Mm,
It was a mental battle
yeah.
the whole time. So yeah, man, it's those things are real, right? Like you don't always want to have that drive and that grind. It's hard to find it sometimes.
Yeah, but you did it, and that's the same as anything, whether it's podcasting or hunting or training or any
Yeah,
aspect of life, starting a business. You just some days, yeah, you just go
yeah,
through the motions or you grind through it, and you can hold some pride knowing that you got it done when most people would have quit.
right. And I think that's just it. It's just getting that little win. Like I think you have to reframe it. I think when you go like, okay, today's not going to be the best workout I've ever had, but how do we create a win out of this moment, right? Mentally and go like, maybe tomorrow will be better, maybe Wednesday, Thursday. I don't know if it's a slump or what it is, but eventually we'll pull out of that, right? Me and myself. And but you create that little win and you hope, okay, I'm going to do it again tomorrow. And if it might suck again tomorrow, you know what I mean? It might just, the nervous system does that to us, right? Especially as we get older, like you just, that nervous system takes a little bit of a hit and it takes longer to recover. But
I also think it's a bit of a way, I'm a believer. I know you guys are as well. It's a bit of a way for God to test us and say, "Are you ready?" Like
mm,
not test us to say, "I think I can get you to fail," but test you to see to he knows we're ready, but he wants us to know we're ready. And so he'll throw out these tests, whether it's not feeling up to a task or having some sort of a setback in life. And what I've noticed is when I have these setbacks in life, whether they're minor, like I don't feel like working out today, that's a minor thing, or something major and catastrophic, like going through a divorce. God just has the ability to use that for leverage for the next evolution of our lives if we decide to accept that. And a lot of guys don't, right? They just think, "Oh, this happened to me, poor me, woe is me. If it weren't for bad luck, I wouldn't have any luck at all."
yeah,
But then there's those select few guys who, in spite of all of the drama and the baggage and the bull crap they deal with, always seem to rise to the top. And the only difference is the story they create about it. That's it. It's just the story you made up about it. Whether it's good or bad, you made up a story. And if it's one that serves you, it'll serve you. And if it's one that's not, it won't.
how much time do you spend working on that, sort of separating the physical from that spiritual, mental story space? Because I work on that a lot, right? That idea of like, yes, here I am physically, I'm here, right? And this is what the body and this is what I'm doing in this kind of earthly space, right? But then kind of pulling yourself back over and going, yeah, but what about like what's really important over here, which is, this kind of this higher level of who I am, and that effort to separate those out, because I think that perspective serves us well if we can do that, right? But it takes a lot of work to kind of not go, I'm in my body, like when I'm sitting in the ice tub just a minute ago, like going, okay, yeah, the body is in the ice tub. Tony Robbins says, like, I say it and we do it, right? And he's
Mm.
sort of by saying that he's separating those two out, like I, me, the guy in the back of the head here, and we being my body and the rest of the other shit that comes along with it is going to get in the ice tub and suffer a little bit. But
I haven't
what have
heard
you
him
done?
say that. I
Yeah,
haven't heard this "I say it, we do it" thing.
yeah,
I actually don't agree with that. I don't think there's any distinction. We are body and soul. I mean, Jesus
uh-huh,
Christ came to the earth as a human form, and he
right,
suffered physically, spiritually,
yeah,
sure, and physically. So
right,
I don't think there's why should we separate that? What like when we go to the gym, are we being any less spiritual? No, we've been commanded to treat our bodies as
no,
temples.
yeah,
So go take care of your body, and that'll actually help you be more spiritual. And it reminds me of and I don't know the exact scriptural reference, but faith without works is dead.
yep,
You can
yep,
say that you believe, but unless you're actually doing the work, you're not really a believer. It's the same
mm,
thing with people who be like, "Oh, my family's everything." It's like, cool. Let me see your schedule. And you pull
yeah,
up their schedule and they're at the gym at 5, then they're at work at 6, they get home at 7 o'clock at night, and then they've got other things they're doing, anything but their family. I'm like, cool, you
yeah,
said your family was the most important thing to you, but you might believe that. You might think that, but you don't believe that because if you
yeah,
believed it, your calendar would look a whole lot different.
yeah,
And so there should be no distinction. We should be integrated men. When
yeah.
I go to the gym, that's a spiritual exercise. It should be. God has commanded us to take care of our bodies and to use those as tools to help other people learn and understand about him. So why should that be separate or distinct from our spiritual journey?
Interesting. I think that for me, I'll push back on you just a little bit, because I don't disagree, because I think if you take that whole separating the physical and the spiritual, the mental, you can find yourself in this like world of, well, nothing matters, right? Well, if that's just the physical space, I'm going to live over here in this little emotional kind of safe corner where they're not the same. I think for me, I've looked at that going, okay, I recognize that they're the same, right? It's like it's a yes and, or to me, opposing truths where you go, if we get too caught up in what's going on physically, um, mentally, you're not able to recognize that, like, I don't know how to say it, Ryan, that it doesn't matter at the same time, right? And I love where you're at, because what you're going is like, what matters is what you do with yourself on a daily basis, right? Show me, like, show me. right? And this hard work piece. And at the same time, I think that physical piece, if I take it maybe to like the materialistic side of guys going, I'm going to approach it and I'm trying to gather things, right? I'm going to gather the nice car and I'm going to gather the nice house and that, because I think where you're at, if there's a spectrum between the Ferrari over here and this kind of, trippy hippy dippy kind of spiritual side, I think our body lands more on this side of it. I think where my mind kind of was more going was around kind of this business success piece that lives over here, that I think guys get too caught up in. You know what I mean? And I think that's where this chase, I guess, is part of this is just where my head's been, is this chase for all of these things, right? To gather. And if you've ever done that, right, you get the house, you get the car, you can make it look good on Instagram, but guys can end up still very, very empty, right?
I mean,
And so
anything can be taken to the extreme, right?
Yep.
So, the vanity of the aesthetics and vanity of physical training could
Mhm.
become a false idol for sure. I've
Yeah,
I've seen that with people.
right.
But you know what? But consider this: Buddhist monks. I
Yeah.
have the hardest time with Buddhist monks. Like,
Yeah.
dude, you're so spiritual. You're so tapped into your spiritual journey, and then you just like sit on a hill in Tibet and talk to other monks about like how spiritual you are. Like, how much value are you actually adding? Go serve people. And granted, I don't know all the intricacies of what a Buddhist monk, what his life
Sure.
is
For
like,
sure.
but when I
Yeah.
see them achieving Zen by
Mhm.
themselves, like that doesn't add any value to anybody's life.
Mhm.
And I know a lot of spiritual people who I'm like, cool. Like, how many kids did you help this week?
Yeah.
Like, how connected are you with your sons and daughters? How many businesses did you start that solve real world problems in real world times? So
Right.
I like both can be taken to the extreme. And,
Right.
and that's why I said integrated is that everything should serve a purpose towards another objective. So your spirituality, you feeling good about who you are and your higher purpose and calling should be aimed at serving other people.
Right.
You going into the gym should be aimed at being able to have energy when you come home from work and your kids are like, "Dad, let's go jump on the trampoline." That was actually an impetus for me years ago. This was probably 15 years ago at this point. I got home from work. I was doing financial planning at the time, and my two oldest boys, they're like, Dad, let's go jump on the trampoline." And I had to tell them I couldn't because I was physically exhausted. From what? Like
Right.
sitting at a desk all day? Like that was crazy. And so it was a catalyst for me that I wasn't stepping up in any real and significant way to serve other people. So I think the ends are how are you serving and who are you serving? And if
Mm.
it's I'm not serving anybody, then you're doing it wrong. Flat out, you're just doing it wrong.
Rather than chasing that happiness, kind of that token of if I get X number of, if I get strong enough or I get this income in the bank or I buy this house, I'm gonna be happy then, right? Because there's too many men,
I
I think,
hate yeah.
get caught up in that chase of that chase of like, I will finally, if I get this, I'm gonna draw happiness close enough to myself that I'll finally have it, right? And they miss the point along the way. In fact, they're gonna get there. You see too many men, Ryan, if you see, I've seen it where they finally get that thing, they finally catch the carrot that was at the end of the stick, and it's just a damn carrot, right? I've said that a couple times on the podcast, but that's just how I see it. And so, how do they
Yeah.
continue to grind and pursue, but not get caught up in the fact that like, okay, this is going to bring me that happiness I've always wanted.
I really despise the idea of happiness as an objective. It's
Yep.
it's not. It's not an object. It's a state of being. I can be happy today because I get to be on the podcast with you guys, or because I get to talk to my kids, or because I had clothes that I could put on, and I'm in a relatively climate controlled building, and I've got technology, and I
Yeah.
just went to the convenience store and got a Red Bull and some beef jerky that wouldn't have been available 100 years ago. I can be
Yeah.
happy just because I choose to be happy, but I don't think it's a pursuit, like it's a goal. I think the goal should be fulfillment. And the difference to me, some people will argue semantics, so let me lay it out. The difference to me is not the absence of hardship, which is, I think, what a lot of people identify as happiness. Oh, if I have the car, if I have the house, if I have the income, if I have the girl, if I have the business, if I have the this, if I have the this. What they're saying is, I don't want any hardship in my life. I don't think that's the goal. I think the goal is to choose something meaningful and significant that you're willing to suffer for. So to me, it's about fulfillment, and fulfillment is not the absence of happiness. It's the ability to overcome significant and meaningful hardship. I've often heard people say, choose better battles. That's right. Choose, not even choose, create better battles for yourself. I remember when I started early, this is 20, 25 years ago in my financial planning practice, and I would walk a dirt trail in my grass in the backyard because I was so worried about how am I going to make the mortgage payment. And I would just walk and pace in the backyard, freaked out about my young family, my new bride, my young son at the time. That's not a problem for me anymore. I have better problems to worry about. And I'm not saying I'm better than anybody else who's worrying about that. I'm saying I've elevated my problems, but my problems still exist. I still wake up. I still walk that same damn dirt trail in the grass, but I'm thinking about different things now. And that's what I think a man ought to do, and women too, ought to do with their lives, is how do we elevate our problems to something way more significant and meaningful than what we've dealt with in the past, and then work to solve those problems.
Do you think I see a lot of men just trying to be copycatting. They see guys that are quote unquote successful or happy or fulfilled, and they see him kind of on that grind, right? So I'll see young men kind of pick up and go, well, I'm going to be like Ryan. And so I'm going to do what he does, but they haven't created the mission that goes with that. So they're just doing the grind without any real purpose in there. Right. And so because even when I was young, there was a formula, right? When you saw successful men, you went, okay, they get up, they lift, they work out of anything, right? They get physical early in the morning, they plan their day, they go to a job, and they chase this thing. But when you don't have sort of a mission, like you said, backing that up, I think it becomes pretty empty. And I think they fell off and they quit because they haven't done it for themselves, right? They haven't really identified, well, why am I doing this?
I think the bigger issue is not that they're pursuing what they see other people they're inspired by doing. I think the bigger issue is they don't realize the entirety of what that individual went through to get there. So I could see somebody I aspire to be like. Let's just take the podcasting realm.
Yep.
One of the greatest podcasters of all time is obviously Joe Rogan.
Right.
So I could look at Joe Rogan and say, man, I really want to be like Joe Rogan. I want to have that level of success. That's cool. That's a worthy pursuit. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But let's backfill that a little bit. And so you start looking at the amount of time he's put in, the energy, the sacrifices he's made, the amount of work he's done. And you're like, if you're being honest, you might say to yourself, I don't know if I don't. When I start actually looking at it, I don't want to do that.
No.
Or you look at the greatest power lifter in the world and you think, I want to be as strong as that guy. Yeah, I know you want to be as strong as him, but are you willing to do what it takes to get there? And the answer, most often than not, is no way. I'm not doing that. And that's fine. You don't have to do that. But this is the problem that we run up against is we often discount what other successful people have done to get to the place they're at. And so if you ever catch yourself looking at another man and thinking, oh man, that guy's so lucky. Like Brian, you're a big guy. You're like naturally, genetically a big guy, right?
I didn't train myself to be 6'5". I just got
exactly.
So do that, yeah.
So what I might be tempted to say is, well, yeah, if I was 6'5", then I would be as strong as Brian. No, you wouldn't. You'd be the same level of strength proportionally as you are right now because you're going to do the same stuff that you're doing right now.
Yeah.
So I hate when people discount like, oh, well, Ryan just got lucky because of X, Y, and Z, or this guy just was in the right place at the right time, or Brian was genetically gifted, or like fill in the blank. And when we do that, what we're simultaneously saying is there's nothing I can do about my life. And I just have to sit back and wait for whatever good fortune happens to stumble across me. And that's a horrible way to live.
What should they ask themselves instead then, Ryan?
What did Brian do? What did he do? Yeah, he's 6'5", sure. But I know a lot of 6'5" guys who are skinny and weak and kind of cowardly and pathetic. So is it that you're 6'5", or is that you put in the effort? And so when you see people who are successful, instead of saying they got lucky or discount whatever it took, say, hey, I'm inspired by him. What did he do? What did he do to get there? Am I willing to pay the same price? If yes, cool. If not, move on to something else.
And so often the answer is no. Like,
Y- Yeah, I mean, to start this kind of whole thing, is like there's no substitute for hard work or work in general, right? So,
yeah,
uh, but I think we are like, for me too, it's like that delusional piece of just not understanding the work that it took to do something.
right.
Mm-hmm.
But you're in a unique spot, and I'm just going to call you out a little bit. Is like you go hard. Like Saturday, you ran a 6-hour race of just as many laps as they could get. And Tyrel runs a lot of ultras. We're different builds.
Awesome.
We're brothers, different builds. Right?
I got to step up
But you
somewhere.
you
I
ran
can't
like
lift the weight.
27 miles.
he
But
he
then
could he could beat you down as long as he could catch you, right?
Yeah,
just it.
exactly.
That's just it.
But if he can never catch me, I'm good.
I won't ever catch him. But I still find you having like maybe some like lack of confidence in yourself. You know what I mean? And I'm like, but you grind, right? You were an Army kid. Tyrell was Army. He won Army's best medic in the Army, and he always downplays it.
Hey.
And Ryan, you were in the Army as well, right? You served. I don't
I
remember
was
which
in the
branch.
National Guard, and then when I went to Iraq, we were in the regular Army at that time. So yeah.
Got it. Yeah, but it's like you've done a lot of shit, and then you still kind of have that little self-doubt piece of going, well, yeah, but I'm not there yet.
Well, and I
Where's that?
think
What's the delta about? Why aren't you there yet?
And I think that's like looking in the mirror of like, I know no one else on this planet knows what I know. So it's like, I know whenever I didn't work hard at this piece, I might have showed up, I might have done this. So I guess it's like, the effort that's being put in for those dreams or goals, right? And then
Right.
so it's hard whenever you're sitting here, and then it's like, I try to pride myself in not being that victim,
Right.
and then so it just kind of falls on you, like,
Right.
well, I didn't achieve this because
You didn't achieve it though, compared to what, right? Because like you look like Ryan and I. Ryan, how old are you? 46, something like that?
44.
44. So we're this 40, I'm 45, 40, 44. And like you're 34, right? And so 10 years, and Ryan can tell you, I mean, Ryan, how much in 34 to 44, that 10-year period, I don't think young men realize just the trajectory you can put your life on in that 10 years. You're finally not a complete asshole,
Absolutely.
because you are when you're younger, right? Like you
Yeah.
got, but it's just, these are those years where you really start to make gains, right?
There's a great quote, and a lot of people have heard it, and I'm going to butcher it. I don't know who said it. Maybe it was Einstein or somebody. It's quoted quite often, but and I'm paraphrasing. But if you judge a fish's ability or greatness by his ability to climb a tree, he'll swim around thinking he's worthless his entire life. And like I do believe, I believe in objective reality. Right. I'm not saying I'm delusional that everybody can be everything. Like I'll never be a professional basketball player. Never. People will say,
Yeah.
oh, you can do anything you put your mind to. Nope. Not true.
Not true.
Like I'm never gonna be that. And that's okay. Because there's something else that I could be really good at if I dedicate my time and energy to that. And so knowing that we all have equal worth and potential as divine beings of God, but we're not equal. Us three, we're not
No.
equal. We're equal in worth, yes. But as far as equal in application, no, we're different. And that's good because we need runners, and we need strong guys, and we need business maniacs, and we need athletes, and we need artists, and we need musicians, and we need leaders, and we need all of it. Politicians is debatable, but we need all of it.
Yeah.
Orators.
Yeah.
I'll say we need orators.
leaders. Yeah.
Right?
We could use
So-
a leader.
We need a leader to
Great.
fill
Yeah.
in that role.
And then I think it's our ability to acknowledge our God-given talents and gifts, and then to lean heavily into those, into something that seems meaningful and significant to us. And you don't have to be a hunter. You don't have to train jiu-jitsu. You don't have to shoot, pistols like John Wick. Like some of those things are good to know, and you should take care of some of those things. But yeah, some guys are artists, and they're amazing human beings, and they generate interest and inspiration and motivation, and they're influential throughout all of human history. And some are orators, and some are warriors, and some are soldiers, and we need all types.
You said God-given talent, and I think that it's sometimes hard for men and women, to recognize what that is, right? There's not always a guy standing next to you going, hey, Ryan, I see you, you know what I mean? and here's a little gift. Here's a list of your God-given talents. Now you're going to go and play with those, right? And I think that's part of it too, Ryan, is it does take some of that time in life to figure out what you are good and bad at. And the key, like you said, to start with is like you have to try. Like you'll never figure out what you're really good at unless you try multiple things. I went through a couple different versions of careers before I landed on what I'm doing because I would try it and I went, I mean, yes, sure, I could make a living at this, but it doesn't feel quite right, right? It wasn't that quitter mentality. It was like, I can do this and I'm going to do it. If I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. But it takes that effort of trying and kind of thinking and looking in the mirror to figure out what those are, because I think that's not, I think guys struggle sometimes to figure out what is my God-given talent, right? Because you don't always have a guy in your ear going, hey, Ryan, this is what you're good at. Go pursue it, right?
Well, I actually do. You do always have somebody in your ear telling you that. And that's the Holy Spirit.
Right.
And the Holy Spirit is giving you little prompts. But it doesn't sound like, hey, you should do that. It never sounds like that. What it's like is somebody comes into your life and you're motivated or inspired by them. Or you watch a movie and you think, oh man, I'd like to be like that guy.
Yeah.
Or you see a billboard driving down the road and it piques some sort of interest or curiosity. Or you have a conversation with a friend you haven't talked with in 5 years and he's like, oh, I'm doing this thing. And you think, oh, that's kind of interesting. I'm curious about that. That's how he speaks to you. He doesn't say like, oh, do this thing. That would be nice if he did, but he
Right.
doesn't.
It'd be
He
great,
just
wouldn't
puts
it?
these little, yeah, it'd be amazing. Even still, even if it was, most of us still wouldn't do it.
Yep.
Yeah, but if you
Yep.
are listening, I've had those moments where you really ask, like, I need clarity. You know what I mean? Like, legit, like, I need something, right? And I've had those moments where I was in leadership in a youth group thing I was doing in college. I was like, I want to quit. I'd like to just go be the Samaritan, right? I want to find men in the ditch and pull them out of the ditch. That was what I felt like I was supposed to do. I didn't want to sing. I didn't want to be up front leading worship music. That was not my
Yeah.
jam. The next day, and I had prayed that prayer. The next day, I drive by a house and it was on the corner of this house on fire. You know? And I was just like, "Hell yeah, there's my sign." That was what I needed to hear. I pulled over, I put the fire out, put sprinkler on it. It wasn't bad. It was just a piece of landscaping timber had caught on fire. I don't know how. It was a hot day. Anyway, but it was a really clear answer. So sometimes you do get those if you're really intentionally looking, and maybe I'm just connecting dots, right? Maybe it's just happenstance. But to me, I was like, "Cool, there's my message. That's the answer I was looking for." Right?
Well, that's
Right,
God
and
saying, are you serious?
right.
Because most people pray for something and they're like, oh, I pray to win the lottery. Or, and that's,
Sure. Yeah.
when I was in high school, we were in we must have been in the state semifinals for baseball. I think it was my junior year. And we were playing, I think it was San Juan. This is like 25 years ago. So I'm reliving some glory days here, but we were playing San Juan. And I remember we were 2 or 3 innings in, we might have been tied or behind a run or something. And I remember I was sitting in the dugout and I prayed to God. I was like, please, God, let us win this game. And I had this really interesting premonition in the moment. I was like, you know what? And I'm 18 years old, 17, 18 years old. I'm like, there's probably a kid in the dugout at San Juan
The other
praying for
side.
the same exact thing. So who does God choose? Well, he
Yeah.
doesn't. He
Yeah.
doesn't care. He doesn't care. He doesn't care who wins the state championship. He just does not care. He
Yeah.
doesn't care. I have people that I talk with who are spiritual. They're like, oh, I prayed for God to answer me on where I should live and what. He doesn't care. He does not care. What he cares about is that wherever you are, you're being the best version of yourself. He
Mhm.
cares about when I was 17, 18 years old, that I showed up fully, that I tried to lead my team, that I did was right, and I played as hard as I could.
Yep.
He cares about now if I mess up or screw up or, don't get the client or do get the client. He doesn't care about any of that. What he cares about is whether or not I showed up fully and did it with honor, whether or not I listened to the promptings, the little small prompt, whether or not I pulled over because I saw the fire,
Right.
and if you do that, then what happens, and this is interesting, is what happens, those premonitions, they get louder, they get more pronounced.
Yeah.
But what most people are doing is like, hit me over the head with a 2 before they decide to actually act. And it doesn't work like that. It's like,
Right.
it's not a 2x4, it's a little splinter in your foot. You're like, oh, okay, I'll pay attention to that. And then it's something else and something else and something else. And sometimes we go down this path and we realize, oh, that wasn't the right path, but it led me to a different path. I'll give you an example. So
Absolutely.
in 2014, I had owned my financial planning practice at that point for about 8 or 9 years. Well, I owned it for 4 years, but I was in the business for about 8 or 9 years. And I thought I would start a podcast, and it was called Wealth Anatomy. And I did
Mm.
about 20 episodes about where you guys are right now. And I realized, man, I love this. This was in 2014. I love this medium of podcasting. This is so amazing, but I don't want to talk about financial planning stuff anymore. And I sat down with a friend, his name's Ever Gonzalez, and I'm like, hey man, like I love this podcasting thing, but I don't want to talk about this. He's like, what do you want to talk about? And I said, I want to talk about just being a better man. I want to hear from guys I'm motivated by, like, how do I deal with my money? How do I lead in my home? How do I get closer to God? How do I get fit? How do I become a community leader and be influential in the community? And so he's like, you should start something on that. So I did in March of 2015. So just about 11 years ago, I started it, and I said to myself, I'm not going to stop doing this. I'm not even going to make a decision until I do this for 2 years. I'm going to do it for 2 years straight. And I did. I went from 2015, March of 2015 through March of 2017. And I made the decision long before 2 years that I was going to continue to do it. But the point that I'm making is that if I never would have started that podcast with my financial planning stuff, I never would have had the ability to impact, quite literally at this point, millions of men across the planet. Now, if I was just waiting for some huge movement opportunity to present itself, it never would have. All it took is me starting, and actually goes way deeper than that, and I'll save that for another story. But all it took was me starting a podcast and it being a failure by outside perception for me to pivot to Order of Man and blow this thing up, because it's what I should have been doing. I never would have done it if I didn't start the other thing that I didn't know wouldn't produce anything for me.
Yeah, for me, that's like following that gut feeling, like switching things up. I mean, that's kind of been my life of like, I'm gonna pursue this. Find that passion, find that joy. But it might switch, that's like things coming in and being okay to take that. And then for me, the biggest part is like being okay with that end result might not be this glorious top of the pedestal like I've imagined.
Mm-hmm.
But hitting these different things throughout that time, I'm going to build my life. I'm going to build genuinely who I am, and then find that peace at the end. But that gut feeling of like, all right, something's inside of me telling me I should pursue this or go this route. I have trouble with like saying like, oh, well, 2 years ago I said this, or like, and getting over what the perception is, and inside of like, well, if I never stick to something, then I'm never going to achieve this greatness. And that's kind of like work and life and stuff. But I'm trying to find that peace with like, okay, I'm following my gut no matter where I go. And kind of
Yeah.
that those signs and that peace that are coming, and being okay with everything that's around that. Cause I know I'm going to find myself at the end of that.
You will.
And it doesn't
And you
matter what
won't
the
even
title
find
is.
it. You'll build it, right? You'll create it.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
again, it's not just semantics, it's a serious distinction. But the whole thing about guys being like, well, 2 years ago, I get that all the time. Like people will literally quote my podcast and send it back to me. And they're like, well, you said this thing today, and 5 years ago you said this other thing that contradicts. I'm like, that was 5 years ago. Like if I haven't
Yeah.
changed what I think between now and what I was thinking in 2017, 18, like what have I been doing with my life?
Right.
So I never think that just because I change my perspective or see something differently than what I saw 5, 10, 20 years ago, that makes me a bad person. That makes me somebody willing to evolve and grow. And yeah, like, do all of us think the same thing that we thought 10 years ago? And if you do, man, what a waste of a decade.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Very,
that's
very
the
true.
scary part. I mean, I asked you that years ago, just this idea of like putting yourself out there. And then as you grow and you change and life changes, that a little bit of it was just me reflecting myself, that fear of like, man, you're going to say something and here I am. It's going to happen to me as well. Right. Like I'm going to say something this year that 6 years from now, back and go like, hey, Man, like, that was just, that's just it was it John Wooden said, like, "I made the best decision with the information I had at the time," you
Yeah,
know? And that's about all we can do, right? Is just make the best decision you've got now and move forward because action always wins, right?
Yeah.
Always. Like, that's just maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'll go back later and say I was wrong, but, like, in my life, action has always trumped everything else, you know? I'm not that bright of a guy, I wasn't that smart, but I was like, "Hey, I just know that if I start hitting on this wall, eventually it's gonna fall down, right? And I'm gonna get to the next room and the next thing and the next thing that I wanna get to." Um, and so,
I mean,
yeah,
you're
but
gonna
it's,
say like, you're gonna say so many dumb things on this journey, and then and
I
just
already have.
acknowledge it. Yeah, no, I know. I mean, I don't know personally, but I'm sure you have is what
Yeah,
I'm trying to
well, they're
say.
out there.
I'm like,
Yeah,
"Yeah, I
they're out.
know, that thing you said last
Thoughts
week,
are
yeah, you
good.
were an idiot."
I
Thoughts are your
I
two
would
favorite.
love the feedback had you taken the time to listen to the podcast, and I would be had you listen to it,
Send it
and,
to me, I'll be sure to let you know how idiotic you
sure,
sounded.
I'm sure. I'll just send you this really stupid ones, like, "Hey, I
Yeah.
said some dumb shit on this one."
But you know what?
But
Like, I think if we just acknowledge it, actually, it'd be funny, and I should do this, is just put together actually, this would be hilarious. I should have my editor just put together a
yeah,
montage of all the ridiculous stuff I've
dumb
said for
shit
10
you said,
years
yeah,
and then just
yeah.
publish that and just watch people lose their damn minds about it would be
Oh, yeah.
hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it
Beat you
would
to the punchline.
Yeah,
There you
exactly.
go.
It would be hard, would it? But I mean, okay,
Yeah.
dude. So speaking of that, like, I know you personally outside of your podcast just a little bit. I've been lucky enough that at Winter Strong, I've had two of the Mickler men on my teams before. So
Yeah,
the first year I got to meet you, you were on my team. And I think it's cool. Anytime you get to kind of suffer together, you get a kind of a different kind of bond with somebody.
for sure.
And then your son, how's he doing, by the way?
Oh,
I know
he's
this
awesome.
is
He's a senior this year. He's graduating. He's gonna go, he wants to be a firefighter, so he's gonna go into some firefighting training, so he's doing really
good.
well, man. Yeah.
Good. Is he still powerlifting?
No, no, he's super into lacrosse. Like, lacrosse has taken over
Yeah.
his world. He is all about
Good.
it. He is immersed. Uh-huh.
And as a result of his lifting, he probably showed up one day and the coaches are like, "What's with all the muscles?" Right?
It
And,
is, and he's got
yeah,
a huge ass and huge tree trunk legs, and
yep.
he just bullies people, and it's all those
Oh, yeah.
powerlifting days, man.
Yeah, yeah,
Love it.
absolutely, and that's a good example of that journey, right? Like, you don't know what it is, but as a rule, picking up weights is always gonna it serves something. You don't know what yet, but it'll always serve you, right? Pick those heavy
Yeah,
things up, put 'em down a couple times, but, as
absolutely.
part of your journey, man, like, since we met, I wanna say 2021. Which,
Yeah,
somebody I saw a post on Instagram today that said something to the effect of like, COVID was 7 years ago or something now at this point,
wild.
which it feels insane because it doesn't feel like it was that long ago that we started that freaking crazy time in our lives. But, I mean, you've been through some shit, man. And I asked you if we could talk about it, and I know you've been open on your podcast, but I mean, you've been since then you divorced and you've quit drinking and you've moved, all the way across the country. And within all of that, there's all of this all of the things we've been talking about. That's real life examples of you going, okay, like I just imagine you, Ryan, as you're a public figure with your audience of men, and then having to look in the mirror and go like, "I've got to quit drinking," and my marriage it appears to be ending. I don't know what order those came in, but
Mhm.
would you mind just touching on that? Because there's a lot for us to learn from that. Because I think
Yeah,
there's lessons in that. I mean, we've watched our father go through alcoholism and just what that what that drug will do to a person. And I'm just not a fan. I drink if I drink, it's so very little.
yeah,
Um, I've never gone far enough where I've had to kind of come back from that. But I would be an advocate of saying just don't. My son asked me that question the other day. He goes, he knows that both my parents are alcoholics. He goes, should I ever drink? And I said, I can't answer that for you because I want him to decide on his own. It's not a rule I'm going to give him and say, you don't ever get to drink, right? Because that'll go bad, I think, for me. I said, I don't know the answer for you, but I can tell you that if I sleep with other women, I'm gonna get a divorce? So there's
right,
rules in life. This
right.
action will lead to this consequence, and alcohol, I believe, is a version of that. Like, alcohol, 100%, nobody is safe. If you drink and you drink a lot, you will become an alcoholic, I believe, and I'll argue that to the death, like, I just will. Like, it's a consistent drug. It will get you? Doesn't matter, rich, poor, none of that in between.
Well, and it's the drug that people culture believes that if you don't take, then there's something wrong with you. No other drug
Yeah.
is like that, which is kind of interesting. But
Yeah.
yeah, man, I went through a hard time years and years ago. I think I maybe had like a drink at night or something once a week or twice a week. And it was a nice way to just unwind after a busy week or whatever. And then that turned into a drink a night. And I'm speeding up the story, but then that turned
Did your wife
into,
and your kids know that you were having a drink at night, or was that
I don't,
you?
my kids didn't at the time. My ex-wife did though. And occasionally she
Yeah.
would have a drink with me. And then, you know, what was interesting is one day she stopped drinking with me at all.
Yeah.
And I remember as we
Ryan,
were going through the divorce,
you were LDS at the time.
I
Is
was
that right?
LDS, yeah, and I left the church 4 or 5 years ago, but I was at the time.
Culturally
Um,
that's not really accepted there, right? I mean,
no,
that's not
yeah,
right.
no, absolutely not. But, you know, I did, and she drank with me a little bit, not to the degree that I did.
Mhm.
And I remember when we went through the divorce, I was like, "You know, you stopped drinking with me." She's like, "Yeah, I never liked drinking. I was just trying to do it to connect with you in some way." I was like, "Oh, yeah." It was
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah.
And when she disconnected, and rightfully so, that's when she stopped drinking because she was completely disconnected. She
Right.
was out. Um, but yeah, I mean, a drink a night turned into let's have a drink at lunch, and by the end of it, I was going down to the convenience store in the morning, picking up a half pint of whiskey, slamming that, going back into the house, and then trying to work or trying to show up at family dinner with my family. It was really bad, and I
Right.
thought I was hiding it really well. Clearly, I wasn't. And then one day she came to me and she's like, "Hey, I can't remember exactly what she said, but I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa." I stopped and I was already drunk at the time. It was a Sunday and I was already drunk. And I was like, "Wait, are you saying you want a divorce?" And she's like, "Yeah, that's what I'm saying." And I spent 6 months, I got sober immediately. Like that day, I was
Really?
like sobered up instantly.
But
I
that,
started
like, you
going,
just
dude.
quit drinking and you haven't I mean, it was
Yeah, I
like
mean,
you're done.
I've had some drinks here and
Right.
there. Like I don't want to say
Right.
I've been completely dry for 5 years because that would be a
Yeah.
lie.
Yeah.
But, you know, haven't got back into the throes of alcohol abuse by any means. But, yeah, I went to an AA meeting immediately, and I started working with a therapist online through a company, and I did everything I could for 6 months to try to salvage the marriage. But by the time she had come to me, I think she'd already decided. I know she'd already decided, like, "Hey, I'm done. I'm out." She'd been planning that for a time, and so yeah, we moved back from Maine back to Utah, and people make all sorts of assumptions. They're like, "Why did you leave your kids?" I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I would
Yeah.
never leave my kids."
Yeah.
So she moved back we moved back together, but then when we got here, she was at the house, I was at a different place, and that's what it's been for 4 years. But we live 2 miles apart. You know, we're close
Yeah.
because it's about the kids. Um, so yeah, you know, and then I had to tell all of my followers that what had happened, and there was a lot of backlash with that, of course, because I was saying one thing but doing another. So there was some hypocrisy there, and you know, hypocrisy. I've wrestled with that. Like, was it real hypocrisy? And I'm not trying to like sugarcoat it or anything, but hypocrisy is believing one thing and doing another, or saying you believe something but not actually believing it and doing it something different. And that never was the
Right.
case for me. I always believed that if I adhered to the advice that I was giving, men would live a better life, myself included. So more than hypocrisy, it just goes to show how difficult it is for us to do the right thing, even when we absolutely unequivocally know what the right thing to do is. And
Right.
if anything, it underscored to me the importance of brotherhood and the importance of education and the importance of accountability, which is all the systems that we have built into our programs. And I had a bunch of people call
Yeah.
for me to step down and to sell my business and go hide. And I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
And if anything,
How
I
was
think
that
at this
moment,
point in my
man? Did
life,
you have
I'm
to kind of, like,
more.
find something
What's that?
deep? Like, how did you find that kind of that would take some courage, man, to go, "No, I'm gonna stand in the fire of this thing and go harder."
Oh, of course. And it takes courage, but it also just takes honesty. And the honesty was, yeah, this is what I did wrong. This is what I struggled with. Here's how I messed up. Here's the consequences. Here's the backlash of what I faced. And if anything, I'm more equipped to help men because before this whole thing went down, when people talked about substance abuse or drug abuse, or going through a divorce, I was very judgmental, very harsh, black and white thinking, would throw them under the bus at a moment's notice. And then I went through it myself. I'm like, oh man, I had no idea how difficult this is. And so it gave me a lot of empathy, not excuses for our behavior, but empathy towards what men are dealing with. And I feel like I'm more equipped to have these types of conversations than I was before.
Was there a moment where you could go back and tell other men like, "Hey, there's this moment that's gonna happen." I mean, and I'm imagining the answer is no, but, how do you give advice to guys to go like, "Hey, before you ever get there, here's some signs to look for," right? Here's 3 or 4 kind of yellow lights that might turn red sort of situations. Um, how do we identify that? Us guys that are, still, that we're in it currently or young men, what do they do to kind of protect from that, right?
Yeah, I think what a man needs to be very aware of is distancing. Anytime there's external distancing or internal distancing. So for myself, when I was drinking, it was to distance, not from the people I love, not from her or my kids, but just trying to sedate myself. The business was doing really well at the time and I was overwhelmed and I just needed a way to shut things off and I needed to disengage from that. And that should have been a red flag for me. Like, what are you distancing from? What's the
Yeah,
problem here? What boundary haven't you set up or what systems haven't you put in place that would be better? So internal distancing, but also external distancing. If other people are distancing themselves from you, like your wife doesn't want to spend time with you anymore, your kids are afraid of you, these types of things, then that's a pretty good,
yeah,
your friends don't want to hang out or spend time with you anymore. Those are pretty good indicators that there's something you're doing that you weren't
yeah,
doing before that you ought to figure out. And so if you have a good personal friend in your life, you ought to say to him, hey man, what's going on? Like I've noticed some distancing from people or uncomfortable or unease and I'm curious. And if that friend is actually a friend, they'll tell you what's going on. And that's
right.
actually a good lesson for people to know too. If you see one of your brothers who's dealing with substance abuse or um maybe it's some health stuff that they're not lifting anymore and they're getting a little doughy, or maybe it's infidelity is another one. If you really are that person's friend, then you need to be willing to risk the relationship because you care about them that much. And what that means is you should call them out. So, Brian, if I saw you, I'd be like, dude, what's going on, man? Like, you're different. You seem agitated. You seem angry. You seem short all the time. Like, you don't seem as motivated. I can see that you're not as in good a shape as you were 6 months ago. Like, come on, man, out
Right.
with it. What's going on? And I
Yeah.
should be willing to throw that relationship on the altar of truth and be
Mm.
willing for you to be pissed at me. I'd rather have that, you be upset with me, because when I told close personal friends about what was going on in my life with the pending divorce, the alcohol abuse, I had a couple of them say, "Yeah, I know." And I was like, "Wait, what? You knew? Like, why didn't you say anything?" Like, "Well, I didn't know how to bring it up, and I don't wanna make it feel awkward." And it's not their fault. I'm not putting any of that
Yeah,
responsibility on them. But at the same time, I couldn't help but think, "Damn, why didn't you say" like, what would have say could I have received it? I don't know. We'll never know. But
right,
what could have that meant if you would have said something? And that's a conversation I never wanna have with myself when I see one of my people struggling.
right, right. And how do you build that tribe? I mean, that's the thing, that's a key piece of that as well, right? Like, I see a lot of men that live that kind of on an island type of life, and they don't have
Yeah.
that guy around them, right? I mean, how have you, because I know you've built your life around helping men create that. I mean, where do you guys go to start that conversation? Because I've said it before on the podcast, we've got a killer tribe of men, dude. We got
Yeah.
some savages, and we're really lucky in that way. But I see a lot of men that don't have it, you know?
You gotta go where the good men are, and they're really only at 3 or 4 places. They're at the gym,
Yep.
and that could be jujitsu or strength training or CrossFit, I don't care, whatever it looks like for you. Like, they're at the gym, they're training
Yep.
physically. They're usually at business type meetings in the community. So that could be a chamber event, a
Yep.
Rotary, some other business networking group, Business Network International. That's where good men are.
Yep.
And the
Yep.
third is the spiritual realm. So they're at church. Like
Yeah.
it's people get this confused all the time. Like, how do I build a band of brothers? You go to the gym, you go to business functions, and you go to church. That's where
Church.
the men who, I'm not saying they're perfect or they're saints. I'm saying
No.
that's the guys who are trying to improve themselves.
Yeah.
And then that's not the hard part. The hard part is inserting yourself into the conversation. So when I moved back to Southern Utah from Maine, and I'm from Southern Utah, so I know a lot of people, but when I moved back, I went and started training at Fusion, which is in St. George, Utah. And that's where I was training jiu-jitsu before. And so I came back and I talked with the owner, Ace, and I'm like, hey man, can I, come back? And I had earned a blue belt, and I told him, I'm like, hey, if you need me to take my blue belt off and I'll go back to white belt and earn it here. He's like, no, you got your blue belt legitimately. Like, you keep your blue belt.
Part of you
I'm like,
needs to actually go back to a white belt at a new gym, doesn't it?
well, if you're a blue belt and you're training with other white belts, like it's a little bit of sandbagging, right?
Yeah, it's just, there's a piece to me, like, because I took some time off and I'm working on getting back in, and part of me wants to just like pull out the old white belt and just be like,
just smash people.
No expectations, like I want to be treated like the new guy again, right? That
Totally.
belt, so much weight with wearing that belt into the
For sure.
gym.
But yeah, I went,
So,
and the first day I went back, this is the hard part, and this is the lesson guys need to know. So we trained for about an hour and a half, whatever it was. And after, there was a group of guys that were sitting on the mat after class, and they were just talking. They were just laughing, talking, telling each other jokes. And this is the hard part, is I rolled up and I sat down. I'm like, hey guys, you mind if I join you? I'm new to the area. You know how many people were like, no, dude. 0.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All of them were like,
Yeah.
yeah, dude, sit down.
Yeah.
What's your name? And I introduced myself and like, cool, good to have you. And then I asked this question. I said, hey, is there anything going on this weekend that I should know about? I'm trying to like figure out what's going on, get back into the community. And they're like, oh yeah, there's semi-pro fights out at the fairgrounds on Saturday. I've got an extra ticket. Do you want to go? I'm like, yeah, I'd love to. So I went with a group of half a dozen guys, and we're still friends.
Yeah.
And that was 3 years ago. All because I had the balls to just say, hey guys, I'm new. Anything going on? I'm trying to make friends. But so many guys won't do that because they think they sound stupid. Even at the gym, I'll see a guy who's like jacked, just shredded. Let's say he's got, pecs and biceps and shoulders. I have no problem with going to a guy like that and being like, hey dude, you got a great physique. I'm trying to build my upper body, and it seems like you know what to do. Like, can you give me some pointers? You know how many I've done that probably 2 dozen times. You know how many people are like, no, fuck you, I'm not doing that. Nobody.
Yeah.
All of them are like, yeah, I'd love to. And they're excited about it.
Yeah.
And so the hard part is inserting yourself into conversations. But if you do that, you'll never have a problem with building a band of brothers, ever.
Right.
Yeah, I think that like being honest with yourself too. You said before earlier, something that's been sticking with me was the altar of truth. And so I just kind of like,
I like that.
yeah, how do we, I don't know, like how do you make sure that you're standing at that altar of truth, true to yourself, and then get someone, and I don't know, I just keep going back to just that piece of being honest with yourself, being honest with others, being truthful in where you're at, right? Reaching out, doing that kind of thing.
But
There's
you can
a
see, guys,
quote by Martin Luther. He said, peace if possible, truth at all costs. I love that
Peace if
quote.
possible, truth at all costs.
You have to be careful because what guys will do is they'll be jerks and then they'll say, well, I'm just being honest. It's like, nah, you're being a jerk. So you do have to be a little careful with the way that you communicate truth. And not everybody needs to hear everything that you have to say all the time. But if somebody's asking for your feedback, or you're in some sort of relationship, whether it's a romantic relationship or platonic, peace if possible. I want this to be peaceful, but truth at all costs. And so you have to be ruthlessly honest and ask yourself at the end of every day, did I speak the truth? Did I speak honestly? When I saw people suffering and they were in my orbit, did I help them? Was I honest with them in a tactful and respectful way? Was I truthful to myself? Or did I wake up and hit snooze and eat like a garbage disposal and not really be honest to my own goals and objectives? You have to be honest with that stuff. That's the only way to improve upon yourself. And you can often tell by how uncomfortable you are. The more comfortable you are, the more likely it is that you're lying to yourself. And the more uncomfortable you are, the more likely it is that you're being truthful and honest with yourself.
Yeah, and it takes time, right? Like that. I just keep thinking about like that rapport piece. I've switched, gyms a couple times, and even like we lived in South Carolina during COVID for a month just to get out of town, and I immediately found a jujitsu gym. And at my home gym, like all the black belts would roll with me because they know like I'm a big guy, but I'm pretty gentle when I
Mm,
roll, and they know I'm not going to muscle and hurt them. And I
right.
was used to that. And then when I got to that new gym, like I'd how guys will sit along the wall, you're just doing open mat, and you'd be like, hey, do you want to roll? And it was really awkward initially. Those black belts would be like, I'm good, because
Yeah.
they see a little white belt or a big ass white belt, and they
Big
go,
ass, yeah.
A little. Has
big ass
anybody
white belt.
ever described you as little?
No, I know, a young white belt, and they just know, like, that's the kind of guy that'll hurt somebody, and so it took me time to get rapport where they'd watch me roll or they'd roll with me in class and they go, "Oh, this guy's, he's not a meathead,"
Yeah.
and, but it took time to get I had some rejections in there, initially, I had some early on rejections, and that's an ego killer, because 'cause I'm like, "Well, my other gym, the black belts will," because I just, like, I love black belts are the best to roll with because you learn so much. They'll
Oh, for
choke you out, but
sure.
they do it in a really loving, little gentle way where you just, like,
Very
you can
kind.
tap. Oh, yeah,
Very
super
kindly
kind.
try to break your limbs. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly, and they know when they're gonna break your limbs and when they're not, and so they
Totally.
know their strength, right? And so, but it is, man, that band of brothers, I think, is so key, but it takes humility and it takes time to kinda go like, "Yeah, I'm gonna have some rejection, so to speak, in those moments around, the perception of me," right? Because we all have a perception when we come in and and there's nothing better. We all, we have for me, especially being a big guy, if I show up pretty gentle, that breaks down walls really quickly. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
it takes a just a tempering of that ego, to do that for myself anyway. But, dude, you said something that I really wanna kinda ask the question now around the tools you have in your toolbox because you had started drinking because it got heavy, right? And you wanted a little break,
Mhm.
and we all have that, right? I had a mutual friend of ours had a really long conversation about him going kinda like, "I don't know where to go to get a break. I'm beat, my ass is whooped, and if there was a well to go to drink from that I knew I could drink from and then be kind of fulfilled and recovered, I would, but I don't know where to go for that, right? What have you found since then? Because I think a lot of guys default to alcohol because you take a drink of that whiskey at night, and the fleshy
Awesome.
body doesn't feel as heavy anymore. You know what I mean? You just kind of don't give a shit. I just had, my prostate removed. I had prostate surgery, and they gave me some Dilaudid, and I was like, "Oh, baby, like, I
You're
could
like,
be
"I
addicted to
like
this shit
this."
in a second, because you
Yeah.
could give 2 shits about the world, you know what I mean? You could see the building next to you fall over, and you'd be like, "That's a bummer."
That
You know what I
sucks.
mean? But just you know what I mean? Hit the button one more time, and you're good, and I was sitting there going, "This is it's an absolutely amazing feeling." It is.
Yeah.
It is, right? It's a wonderful place to be. But we don't get to do that, right? That's not what life's about, right? It is about experiencing this human thing. But where are you going now, man, to do that, to give yourself that respite? Because one of our first podcast, Jesse Phillips, who you know probably from Winter
Yeah.
Strong,
Yeah.
he said something. He said sometimes you have to,
Take a knee and bleed. Be
yeah,
okay with that.
and just be okay with taking a knee and bleeding, And that was his perspective as a Marine who's been through some shit. And
Yeah, I like that.
that's not the question I'm asking you, not to take a knee and bleed piece, right? That's a whole different conversation. But where are you going to kind of feed yourself and fuel yourself, love yourself, recover, in a healthy way?
Yeah, well, I mean, we talked a lot about brotherhood. That's important. But I think the missing piece with brotherhood is humility. So a lot of guys, it's easy to get into a brotherhood and then you come in and you beat your chest and try to be the alpha. Anybody
Yeah.
who's trying to be in a brotherhood, whether it's like a paid group, an investment type group like what we run, or maybe it's a Monday night Bible study or something. What I would suggest men do is if they're going to do that and you want to take that opportunity to the nth degree, then you need to go in with humility. And that means you need to ask questions out of curiosity, not gotcha questions, but questions out of curiosity that you need to probably be a lot more quiet than you're used to. You need to take notes and be a diligent student. And I don't think a lot of guys do that even when they get into brotherhoods. They just start to go in there to beat their chest and prove themselves worthy to have a seat at the table. Don't do that. Just go in with humility and you'll be surprised how much you learn. Yeah, sure, some of it you might already know, but you'll learn so much if you can just have a humble heart and be there to be curious. Curiosity is a huge word for me, and to be open and receptive to new ideas and concepts that you haven't learned before. I love getting out of my mind and into my body. A lot of guys will just ruminate, and the ideas that they have and the frustrations will just bounce around like a ping pong ball, or a pinball machine, just bouncing all over the place and never having any sort of directional outlet. So, I'm just gonna grab something here real quick to show you
Do
guys.
it.
I've been I've got this journal. I bought at Walmart or Ace or wherever I got it, and um, I write in this every single day, and I've been doing it for about 45 days now. Actually, a little longer, since January 1st. And I write in there every single day because I want to get those ideas and the frustrations or the setbacks or the failures or even the victories and wins. And I want to get it all out. I need to get it out of my head. It doesn't do any good in my head. And so I'll write it down. And what's interesting is I'll go back and review it every couple of days or every week. And I'll go back to the beginning and I'll read it. I'm like, whoa, I don't remember thinking that way. Or I
Yeah.
don't remember, man, I was in a dark spot that day or that week. Like, I don't feel like that now. What happened? And so you start going back and seeing how you felt and how you overcame it and what you did. That's huge.
Mhm.
Brotherhood is huge. Physical training is huge. But I think those are all kind of gimme answers. I think the one that men should really do that they don't do a whole lot is journal. It's really journaling.
We've
It's
heard that
just,
so many times.
oh,
I've got like 2 that I've bought even recently. I have one that I bought recently, and I haven't written a single word in it, if I'm being honest.
right.
And we've known, we know. We just like it's one of those rules where you go, "This helps."
It does
Right,
help.
and it's nice to look back on, and I have a couple when my, 2004 Olympic kind of year training, I kept a journal there with my training, and it's so fun to look back and look at, like, what I did and the intensity of what I did, but I haven't done it really since then, but I've had one too many people tell me, like, "This is something that really helps me," but I haven't done it, and it's frustrating as I sit here and I go, "Yeah, he's right," you know? And now you're 45 days into it. What finally gave you that catalyst to kinda say, "Yep, I'm gonna try this journaling thing out."
I just forced myself to do it. I'm like, I don't know what else to do. Like, I've
Yeah,
got Brotherhood, I've got tools, I've got planners, I go train every day. I try to eat right about 70% of the time. Like, I don't know what else I still feel crappy sometimes. Like, what else do I
mhm.
do? And so I started
But
pulling
you've
out the
got it all,
journal
right? You've got
just because
everything.
of
Why do
what
you
you
feel
said.
crappy?
Yeah. Just because of what
Like
you
that.
said is I, like, just do it, just try it, and I think the biggest hurdle for me in journaling was I used to think that you had to do it a right way, and I'm like, "Well, I don't know the right way to do it." Like, I don't know what questions, and I don't know what prompts, and I don't know what I should say. It doesn't matter, it's nobody's gonna read it. You're not turning it
Yeah,
in. So if you're feeling away, and this is what I've done, some days I'm like, "Hey, I don't feel good today. Like, I'm pissed, and I don't know why." Okay, write it. Like, I'm
yeah,
pissed, and I don't know why. And
yeah,
then you'd be amazed at how often it just starts flowing. And
yeah,
other days, like, there's some days where I just write a quote that stood out with me. Maybe it was that quote about what was the one I said earlier about, the fish's ability to climb a tree,
yeah,
or
yeah,
one of my favorite quotes is by John Eldridge, and it says, "Deep in his heart, every man longs for a battle to fight, an adventure to live, and a beauty to rescue." And there's prompts
yeah,
in there on days where all I did was write down a quote. And I'm like, that's cool. That's meaningful to me today. And that's it. But guys we just want to make everything perfect. It's like, it doesn't have to be perfect, just progress.
right.
And overcoming that little hurdle, some days it's 20 words and other days it's 200. And there's probably a few prompts in there that are 2,000 words. Doesn't
Yeah,
matter. Every day I go in there and write, and it's been cathartic for me.
yeah, and is it something that has a prompt in there, or is it just blank pages and you go in
No,
and
it's
just
just a
let it
note.
roll?
Just a notepad I bought at Walmart. It's like a 3-ring binder of lined paper. That's all it is.
How do you deal with that anger piece? Because I think that's something I recognized recently is that I never really admitted to myself, but I was talking to a friend, I was like, "I think I'm just" for some reason, had one of those weeks where I was like, I just felt freaking angry. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And it's not
Yeah.
an emotion I think we acknowledge outwardly very often. But I think as men, we know it's real, which is why I'll kind of second your thing on either jujitsu or the weight room because that's a good place to get rid of that, or at least experience it and have it dump because there's nothing better in the world than having somebody. I always say than somebody else choking you out. You know what I mean? Like life gets you. a lot of clarity in that moment, you know? All the bullshit drops away.
Yeah, you
Um,
start fighting for air and all or blood, and all of a sudden it's like nothing else
yeah,
matters.
and that's when I found too. I was in the middle of we had a company we'd invested $1.5 million in. It was going under. It was done. I was losing
Mhm.
all that. 2 lawsuits going, a forensic accountant crawling really far up my ass, you know? And I was like, "I'm gonna go try this jujitsu thing because I just need something that is so makes me feel so uncomfortable, you know, and so different than anything I've ever done that I won't be able to think about all the other shit that I'm having to think about on a daily basis, you know, because
Mm.
you know, when you get into that kind of moment, you know how it is, Ryan, where you almost can't hear people talking. You're not really experiencing the physical world like you would normally because your head is so full and so busy that you really are having a hard time even registering, you know, the sound of the birds chirping or, you know, your kids talking at dinner and you know, recognition of even your own emotions. So um I forgot where I was going with that, but that
Well,
anger
you're
piece,
asking
writing
what to do,
getting that
yeah.
down.
Well, I think, all right, so there's a couple things here, and, you know, the traditional advice is go lift, go work out, and that's good, you should do that, absolutely.
Right.
Like, you can go get the best workout of your life, and that will definitely help. Sometimes it can be a distraction and doesn't really solve any problems, it just
Yeah.
the problem comes back when you're done.
It will. It
Um,
will come back,
yeah,
right?
but the reprieve is good, but what one thing I would say is the whole world tells men not to be angry. Like, "Don't be angry, don't be angry." No. Everybody, men and women alike, we all experience anger. Anger is not the problem. It's
Mm,
men's response to anger. So if I get mad at something and I go punch a hole in the wall, which I've done, and I go punch a hole in the
yep,
wall, and I've also hit studs, and that doesn't work out too well, but you go punch a hole in the wall. Yeah, everybody agrees you were angry, but nobody would say that's a healthy outlet for anger, right? Or
right,
worse, I punched somebody else, right? Like,
yep,
the anger wasn't the problem, the response to your anger was the problem, and so what I would suggest to more men is be angry. You can be angry. Why? Like, I don't know about your business thing you were talking about, but maybe you had a business partner that just screwed all you guys. Should you not be angry about that? Of course you should be angry about that.
oh,
There
yeah,
is no negative emotion. That's the thing people don't understand. They're like, "Oh, negative emotions, anger, fear, sorrow, grief, shame." No, there's no such thing as a negative emotion. If it was really that negative, human beings wouldn't have either been created and or evolved to experience those emotions, but we do. And why? To protect ourselves, to make better decisions moving forward. And so if your anger because a business transaction fell through, if that drives you to making better, more prudent financial decisions in the future, I would say that's a effective use of your anger.
right,
Or if your wife, you come home from work and your wife's, you know, being impatient and she's henpecking you about something and you start to get frustrated and angry, if you lash out at her, that's a problem. If you say, "Hey babe, like, you know, I don't know about your day, but I haven't had a great day. And
yeah,
when I come home and you start communicating to me like that, I get
yeah,
angry. I get frustrated. I
right,
just got beat up by the world for 12 hours. And when I come
right,
home and I'm experiencing the same thing, it makes me angry. And what would be
mhm,
better for me is if I came home and we had some peace where
mm,
I could come give you a hug and I could give you a kiss and I could play with the kids for a minute. And then maybe when the kids are in bed, we can talk about what we need to talk about in these frustrations.
yeah,
That's a proper way to approach frustration. And
yeah,
the woman in your life would actually probably appreciate that more than you just being a jerk to her because she happened to be a
yeah,
little testy with you when you got home.
and it's
Um,
hard because it takes such an emotional level. I mean, I've had those fights with my wife where I say, "Well, how could I have responded better?" And she says, "Well, if you'd have done it this, this, and this," and in my
mhm.
mind, I go, "That's awesome. You're right." And looking back at film, had I had this ninja level of, emotional intelligence, I would have answered it that way in the moment, but I don't, right? Like, I'm working on it, right? And someday I think I'll get there, but in that moment where it's like you're already getting your ass whooped, it's like it's really hard to hold both of those things at the same time and go, "Yes, I know that I'm angry and I've got my ass kicked," and you've got this enlightened version of emotional intelligence in your body where you go, "Okay, I'm gonna handle this perfectly," right? Because we don't handle it
Well,
perfectly.
we don't, but Viktor Frankl in his book Man's Search for Meaning talks about the gap
Mhm.
between stimulus and response. And so let's take that scenario. You come home and she's down your throat about, you didn't take the trash out and the kids pooped all over the place and she's had a bad day. And then she went to PTA meeting and the kid's not doing as well as they should. And you're like, God, just give me a second. Okay. Just give me 1
Yeah.
second. You do have a gap. And the gap is, hey, babe, hold on a second. I really want to
Yeah.
hear about your day and I want to hear about what's going on. And I want to address the things that we need to address. I had a really hard day. I'm just gonna run upstairs. I'm gonna just take a quick shower. I'm just
Yeah.
gonna like it'll 5 minutes. I'm just gonna process. I'm gonna throw some sweats on and a shirt, and then I'm gonna come down here and let's have some dinner. And then tonight after the kids go to bed, let's address all of that. How does that sound?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you're an avoidant, she might say, "Oh, you're just trying to get out of it, right?" So you can't be that.
Yeah.
What you actually have to do is that night when the kids go down, you need to go to her and say, "Hey, babe, I owe you a conversation. I told you we'd talk about it, and I want to talk. I'm in a better space now. I want to talk about it with you."
Yeah.
And so we
It's
need to
interesting.
deliberately manufacture the space between stimulus and response, especially when we're starting to get worked up. You just have to do it.
And what are you, Ryan? Because I mean, that's something that you said that came from work you've done in the past to understand that even that concept, if you're an avoidant or if you're, if you're a person that leans into conflict, because we all live in those different sectors, right? And so my wife and I know she's an avoidant. So if a conflict
Mm.
comes, she'll go hide, which is
Yeah.
actually torture for me.
Yeah,
We actually
absolutely.
more opposite of the normal masculine feminine in the way that we have conflict, right? Like I'm an over communicator, I'm a talker. I'll talk it out, talk, 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 talk. And she's not, she'll hide. And it feels like torture to me, you know? And so you've done the work to understand what you are, what you know what I mean, and hopefully what your partner is, because I think that's kind of knowing who's showing up to the fight in a way. You know what I mean? And you go, I know how she's going to respond, how I'm going to respond, so I'm ready for that, and she's ready for me to understand us like each other just a little bit, because it takes that partner to understand like this is how Brian reacts, and then my wife's case is how Andrea reacts, because
Right.
yeah,
Well, you
but
train
that's the
people how to treat you, so that's important to know. And so part of the reason she might be avoiding you is because, well, you're a jerk. Whenever you talk about, and I don't know, I'm not saying that, but that happens a lot with a
that's
lot of
right.
guys I
Yeah,
deal with, where the one time she actually opens up, you're like, well, babe, you don't need to feel like that. I don't know why that's a problem. And she's like, well, thanks for dismissing the way I feel about
yeah,
everything. And then she doesn't
yeah,
want to talk with you anymore. Um, and I'm very much the same way. I'm more of an anxious attachment, and so I wanna deal with problems. Like, if there's a problem, I wanna, like, let's have it out. Let's go to blows if we need to, and then I'm
yeah,
very, very quick to get over it, but women are not, right? So, because they'll often say, "Well, it takes more than an apology." Yeah, you can apologize and I can accept it, but you still did the thing and I'm still hurt by it. So, like, women are gonna be generally more like that. But what I would say to her is I would say, "Hey, babe, listen, we know this about each other. I want to address problems immediately, and you don't. You need space." And I think both are valid. Like
yeah,
that's how we each respond to stimulus. So I get it.
right,
I am going to do a better job about giving you the space that you need in the moment when I feel fired up because I know that's what you need.
mhm,
So I'm going to do a better
mhm,
job at that. And will you do a better job at, if I can do that with you, will you do a better job coming back to revisit the conversation, assuming that I'm going to receive it in a mature way and
mhm,
respectfully and treat you with the class and dignity that you deserve as my wife? And I think most women would say, yeah, I'm willing to work on that. That's good. That's the first step. The second step is that the minute she says something that fires you up again, you have to exercise some discipline and say, "Nope, I told her. I'm not gonna
yeah,
blow up. I'm just gonna receive
yep,
it. I'm gonna allow her to say what she needs to say because she
mhm,
sacrificed her own personal desires. I sacrificed mine, and now we're coming to together to try to find some common ground." And we as men have a lot more influence on that than we give ourselves credit for.
right, yep. Yeah, and those things are naturally gonna happen, right? That's just part of it. Like,
Of
we've
course.
been together 25 years. Like, I've had a lot of realizations lately that, like, I'm gonna piss her off once in a while. Like,
Yeah.
she's gonna get sick of my shit, Like, that's a long time to be hanging out with a guy like me, and it's not surprising that she gets sick of it sometimes, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think
But yeah,
you find some common ground and you train people how to treat you. And
yeah.
the very real likelihood is that she's probably naturally an avoidant,
Mhm.
and also you've trained her through your behavior and your response to continue to avoid.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I'm gonna lean in. I'll you know what I mean? I
Yeah,
don't mind the conflict. I don't mind
right.
having the conversation. It
So
doesn't
do
really
that with your
affect me like
guys.
Yep,
You know, and
exactly.
that's part of the power of brotherhood is like, so I run a divorce course for guys who are either currently going through divorce all the way up to 12 months post divorce. And I tell the guys, I'm like, look, you're going through a divorce with this woman. You loved her at one point. Maybe you still do in a lot of ways, but you're not going to lose your cool with this woman. You're just not. And if you need to
Mhm.
vent, you need to swear, you need to yell at somebody, you can call me or one of the other guys in the program, and you guys can yell at each other and you can talk shit to each other and you can do whatever you want. You can tell me how horrible your ex-wife is and why she's this and why she's that and why she's the spawn of Satan. You can do all that with me or with another guy in the course, but you're not going to do it with her. And that's part of
Yeah.
the reason why brotherhood, whether you're going through a divorce or it's just normal marital conflict, that it's so crucial that you have guys that you can talk with, because your wife isn't your bro and you should never treat her like your bro, because
Right.
that will undermine your relationship.
Yep. Yep.
controlling those emotions. So I don't know. I just heard a quote recently. It's like you're controlling them or they're controlling you.
Mhm.
And like coming out of the military, one of the biggest things that I felt like I took away from that was like the ability to control emotions. And I felt like I got to see a lot of examples around me of like leadership, of like, that's not how we handle a situation, or in the moment, your anger didn't help in this moment to get this task done, and your anger prevented us from doing this. Yeah, rewind 24 hours ago, you could pop your top like that, and there's no consequences or anything like that. Um, but it had situational awareness to it, or the a problem to that. And so I guess I just learned that like I can control this anger, I can control this. Everybody's like, how that emotion comes out to someone in a leadership role is probably different for every single person, but I'm in control of that and never let them dictate that. But I guess where I was going with this is like I'm finding that harder
Mhm.
with like kids and a
Young children.
wife,
Yeah.
right? Like
And is
I
it
left that
control?
Yeah.
scenario thinking I'm really good at this. Like I can hold this anger, I can
Mhm.
and I don't know.
And I think
Maybe
what
it's
we're
just like
Okay,
talking
so
about is
here,
controlling it versus experiencing it
that's the
and navigating,
difference.
yeah.
right?
Like
Yeah, yeah.
you don't have any control. You don't. Like,
Yeah.
especially with your kids and your wife. Like, you're not going to get your wife to do something she doesn't want to do. You're not going to get your kids to, you might get them to do something because they're going to comply, because you can ground them or restrict them or discipline them in some
Mm.
way. So they'll comply, but they're not bought into it.
Good
You're
luck,
not.
yeah.
Okay. You're just
Yep.
not going to be able to do that. And so I choose to use some different verbiage, and use whatever you want. I don't care what words you use, but this is what it means to me. When I say control, or what's conjured up when I hear the word control is like force, manipulate, like fit it where it needs to be. And if it doesn't, then you're going to be
Yeah.
pissed. And what I would suggest is, instead of controlling your anger or your frustration or whatever you might be experiencing, is to direct it. So if you're upset because one of your kids did something stupid or wrecked the car, or if they're younger, they didn't clean their room or do the dishes or the chores, that would be frustrating. That's a legitimate feeling. You asked them to do it, they didn't. That's frustrating. And instead of unleashing on them, which I've been notorious for doing, it's like, all right, like, let me explain this to the kids. So let me direct this frustration. So it's like, hey, bud, I asked you to do the dishes before you went out, and I have this conversation with my oldest son, Brian, who and I'm like, hey, bud, I told you to do the dishes before you went out with your girlfriend. You didn't do the dishes, and that's frustrating to me. And it's frustrating to me because then that means that it's left for me to do, or one of your siblings to do your chore. Does that sound fair to you? No. Okay. So what I need you to do right now is to be a contributing member of the household. And I know your girlfriend's over now, but you need to take 15 to 20 minutes, do the dishes. And he's like, well, what about, no, I don't care. She can sit on the couch and wait. That's the consequence. My frustration is you're not contributing equal to the household chores like everybody else here is doing. All right, Dad. Yeah, you're right. Same frustration, but a healthy way of approaching it instead of just blowing up, or even worse, embarrassing him in front of his girlfriend or making him inferior or
Yeah.
inadequate or undermining. That's not going to win you any points, but we might try to do that for control, and it doesn't work. It doesn't help.
I try to control too much.
We all do. It's what we do as men. We all do, but it's an illusion.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Ryan, that was sick, man. Thank you for the time, and
Of course.
I know you've got a killer schedule and you're busy, and I could talk to you for hours. I keep
We'll have
finding
more.
myself in that situation, but with I'm going to bug you again to have you come on again, because there's just so much as we learn and grow. There's that saying of the same man never crosses the same river twice, right? So we're going to grow. Our objective here is going to grow. You're going to grow and have more just good stuff for us to hear from you. And so just want to tell you thank you, man. For the guys that are listening, Ryan, will you please tell us just how they get more of you, what programs? I know you have some cool stuff coming up. You have a lot of ways that guys can get in contact with you. If I know it's just either whether you're just listening in or you can become a member and join and really get the kind of the full thing. So kind of walk us through how we can get more of what you're about, because you've been working hard at this for a long time and you've got great stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if you Order a Man podcast is where you're going to hear my podcast and everything that we do, including the incredible guest. I mean, we have like Matthew McConaughey and Tim Tebow and Terry Crews and Andy Frisella and Grant Cardone. Like the lineup is crazy. So
Oh yeah.
we've got our podcast. So check that out. And then we've got an event coming up. I don't know when this will release, but we've got a men's event coming up April 23rd through the 26th called the Men's Forge just outside of St. Louis. And it is going to be awesome. We've got GS Youngblood, Dwayne Noel, Frank Schwartz with F3 coming out to speak. And that's April 23rd through the 26th. So if the guys go to themensforge.com, they can check that out. And then I'm at Ryan Michler on all the socials, so you can connect with me. I'm most active on Instagram. So if guys hit me up and shoot me a message and say they heard me on the podcast, I'm really good about getting back. So that's the best ways to get a hold of me and figure out what we're doing.
Perfect.
Awesome.
I love it, man. Well, thank you.
Appreciate you
Time and
guys.
energy, man. I really appreciate you coming on and just us young bucks in the podcast world kind of giving us a leg up. And we're watching you and learning from you. So you keep doing what you're doing, and hopefully we can kind of be part of that ripple effect of what you're up to, man, and kind of a similar mission here for us that you've got. So
yeah, I appreciate the opportunity.
So
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, but absolutely. And people listening, please follow us on Rucklist. Same thing, Rucklist on Instagram. All the goodies. We've got the new version of the app coming out here in a couple months. I cannot wait, because we've been working on it for a couple of years, and I've been having to tell a lot of people just to imagine what it's going to be like. And so I'm sick of that conversation. I'm excited to have the real thing in people's hands. And so again, thanks, Ryan, for coming on Rucklist Podcast. We appreciate you, bud.
Thanks, brother.
Thanks, man.